Welcome to Rockpit.net. Today we've got a special guest all the way from America. We've got Rob Luca from Sebastian Bach UFO. How are you, Rob?
Very good. Good
to see you again.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice shirt you got on there.
You like this one? I like your one. Yep. There you go, SPREADEAGLE, of course, one of my favourite bands, as you know.
Thank you. Yes, I do know that.
And we will be touching base on that band very soon. But first of all, actually no, we'll be starting off with them because you have just been to Europe with SPREADEAGLE, which is the first time you've gone in history with that band.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a rundown on how that went. And
it was fantastic. I met a guy on the road with UFO named Ian, and he said he wanted to bring SPREADEAGLE over, and he had this festival called Hair Metal Heaven.
Yep.
And he kept his word. He brought us over. We booked a bunch of other shows around that. We went to Germany. The Hair Metal Heaven was in Hull, England.
Yep.
And then we went to Germany, came back, and ended up in Sheffield, UK, and it was a fantastic tour. It was actually a stronger reaction than I expected because I didn't know what to expect. We'd never been there. Basically, the story is when we were back in the 90s, when we were functioning and signed, we were on MCA Universal. They said, when you break big in America, then we'll send you over there. And obviously, grunge came in, and we never broke big, and we never went over there. And then a year later, the whole geography of the hard rock scene was different. So we never went over, and it was fantastic. The fans were really appreciative, and the band was excited because they had never been there.
I was going to say you would have been pretty excited about the fact that you got to go to Europe, and you're probably planning on doing that back in the early days, but obviously didn't come through. So.
Yeah, we didn't have any concrete plans, but we expected to do the world. We were going to be the biggest band in the world.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to be. I was with you.
I thought too. So we were very surprised when it all just fell apart,
And for Ray, Ray being an original member of the band, unfortunately has never toured out of America. To have that opportunity to go over, that would have been great for him.
It was great, and he was so cool. Him and I, we hung out the whole time, and he was so cool, and he's such a great singer, and it really was fantastic just to do that with him after 27 years or whatever it was, and we're going to keep coming over, going over.
Yeah.
I can
Come on, you can come here if you like. You're more than welcome.
We will work on that too.
Absolutely.
And so we've got worldwide record offers now.
Wow.
We actually had them before we even went to Europe, but I wasn't talking about them.
Yep.
And it's progressing, and we're going to make a record in 2018.
Okay. You have started doing maybe pre-production on stuff already with Rick?
No, well, yes and no. I think they're probably home writing some riffs and stuff.
Right,
And we were writing years ago because we were going to do a record years ago, and then it's kind of fizzled out. But now things are a lot more serious, and it's going to happen now.
Yeah, I actually spoke to Paul, or Salvador, as he is known now, online not long ago, and he actually said for me to say hi to you when you got here.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul. So, SPREADEAGLE finished a European tour. You pretty much had to hang around because you had to jump straight onto a UFO tour.
Yeah, then I flew to Germany. I had a couple days off to change hats and change riffs, and then we went right into, I think it was a festival run, right? Yeah, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a festival run. We did Belgium and Spain, and I think we did a Ramblin' Man Fest, I think, in England with ZZ Top.
Yeah.
So we did some club shows, and that was amazing. And then we went home for about 3 days, and then UFO went out again in US with Saxon.
Yep.
And we just released a new record, the Salentino Cuts.
Yep.
Which came out during the US tour.
Yep.
and that just finished. That was about 3 weeks long, and I went home for less than a day and flew here to beautiful Australia. Oh no, to Singapore.
Singapore
With Bach.
Yeah.
And so now Bach is doing, we did Singapore, now we're doing our Australian tour, and that's going to go right into a Bach US tour, which goes until sometime in December.
Wow. So you
yeah,
have been
pretty,
very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I didn't have it written down, I would forget.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, often when I'm letting you know that you're coming to Australia, you ask me for the tour date, so
Yeah.
I'm usually a step ahead of you when it comes to that. Now, with UFO, I mean, not only is it a band that you've been involved with now for quite a long time,
Yeah, it's going to be 10 years.
10 years, but it's a band that you grew up as your favourite band too.
Well, one of my favorite bands. So I'm not going to lie and say they were my absolute favorite band, because I liked a lot of hard rock bands, but definitely one of my favorite bands, enough to go see them and stand on my chair, you know, as a little guy, you know, going, this is great, you know. So it wasn't just a gig, I was very familiar with the band, very familiar with their music, and so yeah, you know, you do a gig and you want to do well, and you hope everything turns out, but it's been really great because it's lasted this long, and it just really does fit well, you know. But I came up on that 70s British rock sound, so that's just my instincts, you know, of how I play.
Yeah. You were filling in for Pete Way for a lot of those years for tours he couldn't do, but you're pretty much a full-time member of UFO now, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And how does that make you feel, knowing that you...
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're making records, and we're taking pictures, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's going really well, obviously. I mean, obviously the band's
the fit is great.
Yeah.
I think the fit is really good, you know. I mean, I know how to support a hotshot guitar player, you know. I did it with SPREADEAGLE and other bands, and you know. So,
and Vinnie Moore, obviously, is who we're talking about.
Yeah, Vinnie Moore is fantastic.
And he's fitted into the band really well too?
Yeah, he's I mean, it's Phil's band, but Vinnie Moore has definitely become the engine of the band. Like, he's the main riff writer, and his stability has really made the band have a resurgence.
Yeah. Were you happy to find out that after the UFO tour that you were coming back to Australia with Baz?
Absolutely, I love it here. I mean, how many times have we been here, do you know?
Well, Baz has been here probably 6, 7 times. You've probably been here 4 or 5. 4?
Well, haven't I been here on all of them?
Apart from the Skid Row tours, obviously.
Oh, okay.
But I was counting that. But you came over with Guns N' Roses in 07. Then you came back a couple of years later and you did the smaller room at the casino. Then you came back and did Astor. So this will be your 4th time
to Perth.
To Perth. Yes.
I think we
But
might.
you've been over east probably 1 extra or 2 extra times.
Yeah, there was some tours where we didn't get to Perth.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been here a lot, and I love it here. I love it here. It's a fantastic country, great people like you.
Oh, thank you.
And, yeah, it's amazing.
So you're on tour with Baz at the moment. You're not really touring on an album. I guess Give 'Em Hell's been out a couple of years now, or 3 or 4 now, I think. But is there any plans in the works with working on an album with Baz?
I've heard in some interviews him talking about it, but I haven't heard anything, and I'm not sure where that's at.
Right, okay. You're starting in Perth this time. You finished off here last time, so you're actually doing the tour almost backwards.
Well, our first tour in 2007, we started here also.
That's right,
you came from Japan.
Yeah, with Gunners.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, it's just matters, you know, you do it one way or the other, but it all works.
Yeah.
So.
And after the tour, you go back to America for an American tour with Baz?
Yeah, until December. Sometime in December that ends.
Awesome. And do you get a break after that?
After that, I'm going to go home and write some SPREADEAGLE songs.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear.
Some very badass riffs.
Yeah, that's sounding really good. And were you guys playing around with anything new in Soundcheck or anything like that on the tour with SPREADEAGLE?
I mean, we were playing new songs years ago that we have not revisited. We were playing them out at gigs. And
Yeah.
we haven't revisited them. I think we're going to try to just move forward, knowing that we have some ideas that we had that we
Yeah.
could always, we have recordings of them, like rehearsal recordings
Yeah.
or YouTube recordings. There's a couple, I think, somewhere, you know. But I think we're trying to just raise the bar.
Yeah.
You know, not that they weren't good, but we didn't spend that much time on them, so we didn't have anything that developed, even though we were playing some things out.
Yeah.
It was testing, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember them being good, but we're just going to raise the bar. I mean,
Yeah.
when you wait this long to make a record, what's the point of not making it absolutely fantastic?
Exactly.
Record? So that's our attitude. So we're going to write a ton of songs,
Yeah.
and the best ones will make it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
It's
I know-
been a
I
long
know
time
you'll-
between drinks. Another thing I want to touch base on, your website that you've been building for so long.
Did I tell you about it years
Oh,
ago?
you told me about it. Is it all still going? Is it?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's up. It's up. It's called VintageBassWorld.com, and
Did you get that?
VintageBassWorld.com, and it's basically an encyclopedia of vintage basses. It's kind of geeky, and which I totally enjoy.
Yeah.
It's the largest vintage instrument website in existence.
Wow.
It's like 400 web pages and maybe 10,000 pictures. And so basically it's
Wow.
just like for instance, this is a 66 P bass, it's beat to hell. But if I wanted to know, if I was going somewhere to buy this bass, or if I was just curious if this is original, whatever, I would go to Vintage Bass World, I would go to Fender Precision 1966 and say I wanted to know about the pickups, and there's pictures
Got
and
everything there.
descriptions, and it's just an encyclopedia of vintage basses and their parts, and it covers Fender, Gibson, Rickenbacker, Music Man, Amp-Baggers, amplifiers,
Yeah,
also
yeah.
SVTs, and it's really cool, you know, if you're into that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing for dealers, and just, you know, it's interesting from the top, like the highest level dealers, all the way down to just someone who's curious, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And you built it all that yourself, pretty much.
I did.
That would have taken a long.
Well, I've been
years.
on the road for
Yeah.
you know, half my life,
Yeah.
and at one point I just, you know, I was buying and selling basses for rent for a lot of years,
Right. Okay.
and instruments and basses, and you know, upgrading my gear as I did that, you know, and I would get something that sounded better or was more valuable, and I'd sell something off, you know.
Yeah.
And I would take pictures and catalog it just to be, for this reason of just
Yeah.
knowing what is true and what is real and what is a scam, you know. And I was noticing there was, you know, counterfeits and
Yeah.
people, you know, doing some shady stuff. So I was cataloging it the best I can, and I knew most of it in my head, you know, at the time. And I just figured, someone said you should write a book, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to write a book. And then I thought, well, a website is like a book, and it'd be a little
Yeah.
more practical, I thought. And it was getting to the point where I couldn't remember it all. It was so much, you know,
Okay,
like, because the details, like when this screw changed from, you know,
Right.
countersunk to panhead, you know,
Yeah,
like there's
gotcha.
serious geeky stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or when, you know, a pickup moved away a little bit, you know, moved a little bit or whatever, you know. And this isn't a good example, because this is, like I said, is beat to hell, and that's why I love this bass, because I can bring it anywhere, and it's been routed, and
Yeah.
it's just...
Give us some history on this bass and the history you've had with it.
This bass is when Spread Eagle, when we got signed, we went right in the studio and recorded our first record right away. We
Yep.
didn't even have enough songs.
Yep. That's amazing, and on the history with this, you played it on the second Spread Eagle album, Open Up to the Public. On every track, or was it just...
Every track.
Yeah, wicked. Any other basses that you got in your collection that are very special to you that you bring on tour, or maybe too good to bring on tour and you leave at home?
Yeah, I got a bunch, but notables, just I have a 70 9 Thunderbird that I use for all the UFO stuff, and similar to this, it's just something about that Thunderbird sounds better than all the other Thunderbirds I played. You know, so you know, it's like you would know, like it's like a Marshall head or a car. You know, you think they're all the same, but you get one, it's just special for some reason. You know, Les Paul. You know, they all look the same. You know, except for different, you know, finish, but they sound so different. You know,
exactly. So with your website, with the bass website, have you had anybody, any like well-known bass players, just come in and like try to, you know, chat with you about your different basses? Anyone that's been a surprise that you've been?
Not yet. It's still gaining popularity, but at some point it's inevitable because there's nothing like it in the whole world.
Wow.
It's by far the most detailed, and it goes from 1951 to 1983.
Wow.
So all models, all makes.
Yeah.
For those, you know, 30 years.
So when will we see a Rob DeLuca specialised bass? Any plans on that at the moment? Or?
You know, I was designing one in the 90s with someone, and we never saw it through, but maybe someday. No plans for it right now, but I'm open for it.
You also did some work with Joan Jett.
Very briefly, we did some shows with her. She's a legend. It was great. She was very nice.
How did that come about?
I know Tommy Price because he played on the second Spread Eagle record, and I knew the bass tech, and the bass tech wanted someone with a real pick attack. Which is one of the things that I do, and then coincidentally after I wasn't in her band anymore, the bass tech became the bass player.
Oh, right, okay.
I was wondering at that point, why didn't he just recommend himself from the beginning?
So you just helped out with a few shows there, pretty much.
I did just like a season with her. You know? And then I don't know what happened. I moved on to something else.
And Helmet.
Helmet was that was where was that? Was that in Australia or no? That was in Europe then.
I think,
No, it was Canada.
Okay.
It was in Canada. Sorry about that.
That's right. How did that come?
3 hours sleep. It does get hard to remember the details. Though, like, you know, it becomes a blur. But the bass player could not. It's a long story, but it's interesting. So I'll tell the whole thing.
Okay.
Because it is really a great story. I was playing with Sebastian, and we were on tour with Guns N' Roses, and we were the opener. We weren't direct support, we were the opener.
Right.
And Papa Roach came in for a handful of shows, and they were surprisingly really good. And I really didn't know much about them, because they were kind of like just like a younger band I wasn't plugged into at the time, and they were fantastic. And then they went off to do their own headline tour. And then the Eagles of Death Metal came on to be direct support.
Right.
And they came on the tour for literally about 20 minutes, and they were booed off stage and off the tour.
Right, okay.
So we didn't expect that, you know. And so all of a sudden, like instantly, they started talking a lot of shit about Axl and Sebastian in the press.
Right, okay.
Really mean stuff, you know, very mean-spirited, and, you know, like they could have left quietly. It just, you know, I mean, I watched their set, and it just wasn't compatible with Guns N' Roses fans, you know. Like, it's not really judging them as a band, you know. You can just a mismatch, and it could be disastrous.
Exactly.
And it could be two great bands that are just mismatched. So, not even judging them musically, you know, it just didn't work. And the fans let them know right away, and Axl, I'm sure, realized right away, and they were off the tour.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that's business, that's life. But then they did something that was really uncool. They started talking a lot of shit in the press, and even though it's a big tour, GNR, you know, like, you don't want negativity surrounding a tour. It's just bad biz. It's just not good.
Yeah.
and I don't think anyone liked it. So that's what was happening. That was the mood. And so Guns N' Roses decided to bring on Helmet.
Yeah.
And I knew Paige Hamilton, the singer, guitar player, leader of Helmet, a little bit from New York.
Yeah.
But I didn't know him well, but I knew him. And so the show with Eagles of Death Metal was in, I think, Michigan or something. It was in America, upper Midwest. And then we went to Canada. So Helmet flew in for Canada, or drove in for Canada, whatever it was. And their bass player couldn't get in the country because he had some drug offenses, prior drug offenses.
Yeah.
So we got to Sebastian, we got to the venue, and people started asking me if, what's going on, was I going to play with Helmet? And I'm like, I didn't have Paige's phone number, he didn't have my phone number. I probably didn't even have cell service in Canada,
Yeah.
So I was wondering what was going on, because people were coming up to me pretty quickly when I got there, and I was trying to process what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And so someone explained the situation. I thought it was a joke or something, and they're like, no, we really, we want you to do this, and Paige really wants you to do this. So I would, my thoughts were like, okay, we have this, because it was only a day after the whole, or 2 days at the most, after the whole Eagles of Death Metal thing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, okay, that was just, snafu, and now already we have another situation. And I was, again, like, it's a very successful tour, but I was feeling like, when you're on a tour for a long time, GNR kept asking us to come out on multiple tours, you feel some ownership to it. You feel responsibility to it, and you feel very connected to it, very protective of it. It's everything to you. It's your job, your art, your happiness, because this is what you dreamed of. You know what I mean? It's a lot of things tied into it, and I tend to take things seriously in that regard. So I was thinking already, like, okay, here's another snafu for this tour. It's happening all in a short amount of time. So I really wanted to do a good job. So I got to the venue. A bunch of the GNR's techs helped me with getting MP3s of all the songs, and I learned all the songs. I had like 4 hours and did it, and then I did the whole Canadian tour. I know that's a long explanation, but I think it's one of my most, it's one of the really interesting stories of things that have happened to me on the road, other than like, we rocked this town, it was great, and we went out, we had some beers, and we went to the next town, which is all good, but this was a really, crazy story that happened, and it was true. So then I did the whole Canadian run, and playing in both opening acts, Sebastian and Helmet. But so that night I played, and Paige, who's a very cool, very smart guy, he sensed a similar thing where GNR's fans weren't totally getting the Helmet thing, because it is a different audience. But Paige is very smart. He said, I'm not going to have an ego about this. Why don't we switch? We go on as the opener, meaning Helmet. Sebastian goes on as direct support, and then GNR go on.
Yeah.
And then it worked, because then people weren't as tense, like, because it's right before GNR is going to come on. They get, it gets very intense because it's Guns N' Roses.
Exactly.
So it made it much more, the audience much more accepting of Helmet. And then they did have a really good tour, a very successful tour, where they were connecting to the audience.
Yeah.
And then we stayed on as direct support for the next few years. That's just when we started as Sebastian went to direct support. He just started as direct support at that point, and then stayed on as direct support for many, many tours.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
So how was it learning a whole, because I'm assuming you probably weren't a Helmet fan either.
Well, no, I am.
You're familiar with the stuff already?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, so it was not, I guess, a big thing for you to jump into a band that you really didn't have an idea of.
No, it was nothing like that cold, had no idea of the band.
Yeah,
but still, it's hard.
Yeah,
you don't want to be up there making mistakes. And
a lot of pressure?
I didn't have time to think about the pressure.
Right.
It would have been if I had time to think about it. But if I would have thought of it, anything like that, it would have probably been like a half a song I couldn't have learned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I literally barely had enough time to get like 9 or 10 songs together because I only had like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And their stuff has a lot of odd time signature changes. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a whole, you know, compared to what you're doing with Sebastian, it's a very different feel.
Very different animal. But they're a great band, Helmet are.
Yeah.
And it was a blast.
Okay, so with George Lynch, when you were playing, who was singing at the time?
Well, it started with Kelly Keeling. We did a rehearsal with him and we did a gig, and then he went missing. And we had a gig the next day, so the tour manager, Ray Freeman Jr., called in his brother, Andrew Freeman, who now sings for Last in Line. And Andy came in on, like me with the Helmet situation, just, he had a night to get all this material together and to be the front man.
Yeah.
So he did a hell of a job, and he's a very nice guy. And I knew him, like the Freeman brothers I knew from New York for years, you know?
Yeah.
So he was the singer.
Right.
And he did a great job.
And how long did that project end up lasting for?
I did it, you know, maybe over a course of a year to year and a half. I did various tours, but we weren't that busy.
Yeah.
You know, a few tours, I think it was, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't that much.
Another band I want to ask you about, which I know has been close to your heart over the last 10 years or so, and I'm not sure what you're doing with it at the moment, but your band Of Earth.
Yeah, Of Earth is a really interesting band, and it's very dear to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm just so busy. I haven't even been home since this summer, barely.
Yeah.
And with Spread Eagle starting up, and you know, it's hard to get to everything.
Yeah.
And that's basically, it's not an excuse, that's just the situation. It's hard to get to everything.
You released a second album?
Yes.
You did.
The second album's called The Monarch.
Right, I've got the first one.
Yeah. You can download the second one for free on Bandcamp, oferth.bandcamp.com.
Okay. Yeah.
Go download it.
Give me a rundown on that, because musically it is a little bit different than what you're used to doing in Spread Eagle, Sebastian Bach and UFO.
Yeah, it's still the rock template, 70s rock influenced, but it's more like the Pink Floyd rock template with lots of organ and keys and synthesizers, and also with the big guitars. And you know, it's very melodic, but it's very dynamic, and the lyrics are really good, and I love it. It's very dear to me, but I get to things when I can, because you know.
And you're the vocalist.
I need to clone myself,
band,
and I sing for that band as I play bass.
Yeah.
So I need to clone myself.
Yeah, you do. Well, I think you do anyway, because you're so busy. But Rob, it's been good chatting with you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Corey.
And thank you very much for taking the time
good
out.
to hang out with you.
Thank you, and it's always great to hang out with you too. Of course, you're from two of my favourite bands. Thank you, Rockpit.net.
Thank you, Rockpit.net.
You'll see Rob with Sebastian Bach for the rest of the week in Australia here in October. It's October the 20th. They start their tour tomorrow night here in Perth, and then they continue on to the rest of the country before heading back to America for an American tour. So tune in with Rob and Sebastian and UFO and Spread Eagle and keep up to date with what's going on, and we'll catch up with you next time. Thank you.